Kidnapping, common law and model penal code abbreviated as MPC. Common law and the MPC have similar requirements for kidnapping. In general, a defendant is guilty of kidnapping if the defendant unlawfully restrains and transports a person through force or the threat of force. Kidnapping is classified as a felony at common law and is among the inherently dangerous felonies that can support a felony murder charge. A defendant may be found guilty of kidnapping if the facts establish all the required prima facie elements in the following checklist and do not establish a defense. Checklist for the prima facie elements of kidnapping, common law, and MPC. Remember that, even if the prosecution can establish the prima facie elements in this checklist, the defendant may have a valid defense. Restraint and movement of victim. The actus reus required for kidnapping is the unlawful restraint and movement of the victim. Although historically the crime required that the victim be transported a great distance, in many jurisdictions there is no such distance requirement. Furthermore, many jurisdictions have expanded the definition of kidnapping to include instances in which a person is actively concealed, even if not moved from one location to another. Under the MPC, a defendant is guilty of kidnapping if the defendant removes the victim from the victim's home or business by force or fraud, takes and transports the victim a substantial distance by force or fraud, or holds the victim in one place for a substantial period with the intent to seek ransom, inflict injury or terror on the victim, or transport the victim at a later time. Note that kidnapping under the MPC does not necessarily require movement of the victim. Example: coaxing a victim into a car through lies and deceit, and then driving a mile, would satisfy the actus reus element of kidnapping. Example: forcing a victim out of the victim's home at gunpoint would satisfy the actus reus element of kidnapping. Force or threat of force. At common law, the defendant must restrain the victim through force or the threat of force. Mere moral compulsion does not suffice. Some jurisdictions have dispensed with the requirement of force or the threat of force where the kidnapping is of a vulnerable victim, e.g., a child or person with a mental disability. At least recklessness or criminal negligence. Kidnapping is a general intent offense. This means that the required mens rea is at least recklessness or criminal negligence with regard to whether the defendant has restrained and transported the victim without the victim's consent. Example: a defendant in good faith asked a friend to go with the defendant to a destination a few miles away. The mens rea element for kidnapping would not be satisfied, even if the friend felt coerced, because the defendant did not act intentionally, recklessly, or with criminal negligence regarding the friend's consent. False imprisonment. False imprisonment is a lesser included offense of kidnapping. It applies where the defendant unlawfully restrained, but did not move or conceal a victim. False imprisonment is generally classified as a misdemeanor. Copyright disclaimer. Pursuant to Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976, 17 U.S.C. Section 107, this video may incorporate copyrighted material, the use of which has not been specifically authorized by the copyright owner. Such material is presented herein for purposes including, but not limited to, informational, educational, and non-commercial use, which may constitute fair use, as recognized under the law. All rights in and to the original works are reserved to the copyright holders. If you are the copyright owner and object to the use of your work in this manner, please contact me so that the material may be removed or otherwise addressed. Author Helix Bar Review.